Vice President Biden's rise in poll numbers sets fire under the Clinton campaign, so much so. You're really happy about this, I can tell.
No, I'm not happy. I'm just saying it's a fact.
Yeah, you can't hide that smirk. It's set afire so much that the Hillary Clinton campaign has, actually Hillary cut her vacation short from the Hamptons so she can visit Iowa. I don't think it was for the tractors.
No, and nothing about this makes me happy. I'm not wishing for the downfall of the Clinton campaign, but when she says things like this from the stump, it's hard not to see what she's actually trying to do. Take a listen to how she talked about Joe Biden's very hard decision.
Joe has had more terrible events than most people can even, contemplate. Losing his first wife, losing his first daughter, now losing his son. I think everybody should, he has to do what he has to do. But I'm just going to continue with my campaign.
Translation, Joe Biden is damaged goods. He's too emotionally sensitive
That's
right now to run for president.
Oh,
yeah, definitely. Let's bring in our roundtable right now to talk a little bit more about this. Republican strategist Ford O'Connell and Rick Ungar, host of the Daily Wrap, who I can already see is shaking his head in disapproval at my assessment. Rick, let's go ahead and let you start. What do you think about that? Obviously, and Clinton's a very savvy politician. She was not just making a statement about her friendship with Joe Biden right there. She was trying to basically cast some doubt on whether or not Joe Biden can run for the presidency.
No, she wasn't, John. I'm shocked in you. You're not a cynical guy. That's.
Of course he's a cynical guy. What are you talking about, Rick?
I think a lot of us are cynical when it comes to Hillary Clinton's motives and her calculated nature out there on the campaign
you're
trail.
entitled. You're entitled, but no, and listen, I'm a much bigger supporter of Joe Biden, as I think you know. But no, I'm not going to lay that on Hillary Clinton. I don't think that was her intent at all.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Rick.
Whoa, are you serious, Rick?
Yeah, come on, Rick.
Let me be honest with you.
You're not that naive, are you?
If she's not emotional.
Hold on. The reason
I'm accused of many things. Naivete is really one of them.
Go ahead, Ford.
The reason why she changed her talking points with respect to emails, yes, it was killing her in the polls. Joe Biden is the only credible candidate out there who can take the nomination from Hillary Clinton. And he actually, if he got in, would have a window if he had Elizabeth Warren's support and Barack Obama's support, because the key to Hillary winning the nomination is black voters. And right now she has wide support from black voters, but not deep support. And if Biden can actually close the loop on that, guess what?
What's that got to do with the point?
He's a clear and present danger to Hillary Clinton.
Go ahead, Rick. You had a question there that I don't know if you heard.
I agree with everything Ford just said. That's all true. But that, look, guys, we don't have to vilify everybody who we disagree with. There are certainly Republican candidates that I don't agree with, but I would not accuse them of using a friend of theirs in that way and using their tragedies in that way. Hillary is somebody you may not like. You may not want her to be president. I get it. But she's not a monster, and I don't think you need to go there. I'm a little bit surprised at all.
Go ahead, Miranda.
I watched that and I saw something completely different. Now, I'm not a political strategist like Ford here, but I thought it came from the heart. And you're always criticizing her, not just you, but other people, saying she's too robotic.
Look what happens when she does.
So then she shows it, and then you're criticizing her for showing it as not being believable.
No, this is not robotic, Miranda. Here's the problem. She's been running for the presidency for 20 years. Every move she makes is calculated. And I was on another program debating the head of her super PAC, and as soon as I said the word Joe Biden, they went crazy. So trust me, there may be some sincerity to it, but she's circling the wagons because the Biden talk is real.
Yeah, and even Bill is deeply agitated right now.
Well, you've just come a long way.
About this run.
You've just come a long way, Ford. You just said there may be some sincerity, so that's really the point here, isn't it?
Maybe
All
this
right,
much.
well, let's take a look at some poll numbers, because this is kind of interesting. I'm sure you guys have seen this. This is a new Quinnipiac poll. So when pitted against Trump, Biden gets 48% of the vote, Trump gets 40%, but when Clinton's pitted against Trump, she gets 45% of the vote to Trump's 41%. Rick, how nervous, though?
Yes.
Let's go away from how she said it, her tone, her motives, but how nervous should Clinton be about these new numbers?
She should be very nervous, in my opinion, but I would add this, and I am a Biden supporter. I've been pretty unabashed about that. But we do have to keep in mind that candidates tend to be far more popular before they become candidates. And I think that's part of what Joe Biden is experiencing right now, the fact that he is not an announced candidate, and he's recently had a pretty awful tragedy, and people have a certain sympathy towards him. I don't know whether or not those numbers hold up once he does get in the race, if he does, but there's absolutely no way the Clinton campaign can be anything but nervous about so many things. This is just one of them.
Yeah, and I know it was kind of telegraphed. We knew about it a week or so ago, but you don't leave your vacation in the Hamptons unless you are sweating it out a little bit. And Bill Clinton apparently very agitated by a possible Joe Biden run. Gentlemen, hang tight. We got a little bit more to go on the roundtable. We're going to take a brief break here. Much more to come. We're going to talk coming up about the selfie perhaps getting us in trouble at the ballot box. And when Biden debates or not to jump in the race, he decides whether or not to jump in the race, Donald Trump proves he is in it and in it to win it. Still up for our discussion, the issue of gun control. Where does the Donald stand on this issue now compared to where he used to stand on it? And how he's reacting to yesterday's deadly shootings of those two television journalists. Also, the father of one of those victims speaks out why he calls politicians nothing more than cowards. We're coming right back after this. Before we get back to our roundtable, we want to update you on that special offer. Right now, you can get Ted Cruz's book, A Time for Truth, free with this special offer. All you have to do is go to newsmax.com/Ted Cruz or call this number on your screen, 1-800-485-4350. Make sure you stay tuned to Newsmax TV tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Ed Berliner continues his discussion with Ted Cruz. Now back to our roundtable and Rick Ungar and Ford O'Connell, chairman of the Civic Forum PAC. Of course, you can catch Rick Ungar right after our program here on Newsmax TV. Let's talk, guys, about gun control. Donald Trump spoke on CNN's New Day this morning. He's also been speaking about this from South Carolina. When asked what he would do regarding gun control policy in an effort to prevent attacks like yesterday's fatal shooting in Virginia, this is what the Donald had to say.
Because this is really a sick person. This isn't a gun problem. This is a mental problem.
All right, we'll let you go ahead and start out with this one, Rick.
Well, you know, he's right at this. Certainly in this case, from everything that we know, this fellow was able to clear a background check and bought a gun legally. Look, you know, this is such a difficult argument, and I think we all make too light of it on both sides of this issue. The reality is, like it or not, we could outlaw guns tomorrow. We could regulate them in the attempt to regulate them into non-existence, and there would still be 300 million guns out there. So I think that people who have this discussion forever have to understand guns aren't going away. It doesn't matter if I like it. It doesn't matter if I don't like it. They're not going anywhere, and we have to deal with some of these realities the way it is.
Well, the father of killed WDBJ TV reporter Allison Parker appeared on CNN's New Day, and here's what he had to say about the issue of gun control.
I'm for the Second Amendment, but there has to be a way to force politicians that are cowards and in the pockets of the NRA to come to grips and make sense, have sensible laws so that crazy people can't get guns.
Ford, we heard what Rick had to say. Now we heard what the father had to say of one of those victims. Ford, in your opinion, should politicians be pushing for stricter gun control laws, or do you think the focus, as Rick just pointed out, should be more on mental illness, that there's common ground there?
Well, let me say this. It's hard to push back on a father who just lost his daughter, who in the whole situation unfolding on live TV. I do agree with Rick, and I do think we need to be focusing on the mental health aspects. Let me pose this question. What gun law would you propose that would actually stop this situation? As I understand, the guy used a pistol that, forget whether or not he could pass a background check, this was a regular, ordinary gun. This was not some semi-automatic gun. This was not a lot of different things. My question is, what law are you going to propose? And to Rick's point, which I agree with, you could regulate guns out of existence, and we're still going to have this issue.
You can go on the NRA's website, and they will mention several aspects that they try to support mental health legislation and some efforts to try and curb these things. But something that I would personally like to see is maybe some money put on the table from a lot of these gun rights groups, these Second Amendment groups, to start dealing with this. We know that nothing's going to happen in Congress, and we saw Joe Manchin and Pat Toomey try to address the background check issue. And again, I don't know if that would necessarily do anything. And we know these gun control groups, they don't feel this so-called feel-good legislation. The other aspect of all this that I come away with is if Democrats are really concerned about these issues, why do we only hear them talking about them after these types of tragedies?
Well,
Again,
that's
I
clear,
mentioned
though.
I mentioned
That's clear,
today
though.
Hillary Clinton back
Well,
out on the campaign trail talking about women's health issues. She talked about gun control for exactly about one day. Maybe
John,
she'll talk about
can I
it a
weigh
little
in on
bit
that
more.
one for
ahead,
one
Go ahead,
second?
Ford.
Over the last 30 years, the opinions about guns, pro-gun, anti-gun, has not changed. This has been a static issue. The reason why Democrats jump in is because they want to piggyback the news cycle and hit emotion and strike while the iron's hot. Unfortunately, we're pretty static in this country on guns, and the Second Amendment's going to continue.
Yeah.
But I want to know.
I'd be cautious. I'd be cautious about making this a Democrat versus Republican issue. I know a number of Democrats who have guns and are pro-gun, and I know a number of Republicans who
that's a good
don't
point.
like guns. So I don't think it's that way.
And when I
do
say this,
think,
though, Rick,
however,
I'm talking
not
about
talking
candidates
necessarily
here.
about the politicians.
I'm talking about the
I'm talking
presidential
about the
candidates.
views in
Martin
this
O'Malley,
country have been pretty
Hillary
static.
Clinton.
It becomes political, and that's the problem. And that's the problem with politicians speaking up way too soon after a tragedy like this happens. Look, we've got to begin to understand that whether you like the Second Amendment, whether you don't like the Second Amendment, is wholly and completely irrelevant unless you intend to amend the Constitution. Because whether you like it or hate it, the Second Amendment is there, folks.
Right.
It's been challenged in many, many, many times, and it's still there. Deal with it.
Yeah, it's not going away. There's no doubt about that. It's not going away. Rick, thanks so much for sticking around with us. We know you got to get ready for the Daily Wrap coming up in just a few minutes. We're going to let you go forward.
Yep.
We're going to have you stick around. We want to talk about the issue of selfies at the ballot box. Is this really a danger to our democracy?
Could be.
A couple lawsuits and some laws in places like New Hampshire and Indiana are taking a look at this issue. Is it a First Amendment issue? Do we have a right to do this?
We'll find out. And let's talk about Hillary Clinton. We're going to talk about what the future holds for her. So voters were asked to take a poll and use words to describe the candidates. What adjectives they decided to choose for Hillary Clinton? We'll talk about that. All coming up.